Alrighty. Hello there, Edgewood class of 83. This is Larry Housel, and this is Debbie Fleming Housel. And we are now married and living in Alabama. But I will be coming up for the reunion, but Debbie will not be able to make the trip. So we came up with the idea of doing a Zoom meeting for anyone who can't make it, that find that an easier way to attend and maybe share a story. So our idea is to just maybe share a 3 to 5 minute version of our 40 years away from high school from Edgewood. But so I'm going to start off, and Debbie's going to tell her story. But I don't know, some of you might remember the summer of 82, there was a few students that was able to go to France with Mr. Bowman. And I was one of those. And after coming back and experiencing that, it really kind of changed my life and the way I saw things, and was very excited to travel and see the world. So after graduation, I went to I finished a correspondence course that was a school for travel, and I ended up in Kissimmee, Florida. So I left to do a 6-week course in Florida on February 12th, 1984. So the reason I remember is just that's the day I left home. And I did come back. I raised my kids there, but let's stay with the course of the story here. So I graduated from that school, learned some hotel businesses, learned some airline computers, but I ended up getting a job with the Marriott Marco Island in Marco Island, Florida. I lived in Florida for 3 years, thought that Chicago would be a fun place to try. So I moved to Chicago. A friend of mine from Marco had moved back home. She was from Iowa, but she had moved back to the Chicago land area. So I followed her up there, and I was working in the downtown Marriott. I did that for a year, and then I decided that if I was going to go to college, I better get to college. And the only place I really wanted to go was Ohio State. So I looked into going to Ohio State. I think I was home for Christmas the year before, which had been 86. And I ran into Mo Nelson, and he was already at Ohio State. And he said, if I made it down there to look him up, maybe we could be roommates. So Mo and I were actually roommates for 2 years. And I graduated Ohio State in 91. I stayed for another 3 years. Actually, I was there for 7 years total. I worked for the Hyatt Regency in their catering department or banquets department all through college. And then those few years after, I did have a job with American Express Travel, but that was a short-lived experience, about a year. And then I went back to my college job, got a full-time, did that for, like I said, about a year or so. Well, then I was kind of going through a spiritual awakening and felt like I needed a change. So I looked into moving to Texas, San Antonio. I had a cousin there, and I did go. I was hired or offered a position by Marriott, but I did not accept it. The Lord kind of told me to go home. And for that purpose, it was to go back to Pierpont. And so I went back to Pierpont and ended up meeting my first wife. And she had 2 children already, and we had a child together. So I have 3 kids. My oldest daughter is Tia, and my son is middle child. He is Christopher. And then I have a baby that we had together that her name is Jessica, and she's 23. So I think there's 23, 27, and 30, somewhere in there is the kids. But I love being dad, had a great time being dad. While I was raising my family, I worked for Wonder Bread and drove Wonder Bread truck, route sales around Ashtabula, Madison, Erie. And then when they went under, I actually was with the company when Wonder Bread went out of business. But I was hired by a food company called Giarusa Pasta and Sauces, and they are out of Youngstown or Boardman. And I worked for them for 7 years. And through that period, actually before Wonder went out, I was divorced from my first wife and raised my kids singly. We shared custody, different things like that. I won't get into all that. But then I met this lady named Debbie Shapiro, and I was introduced by a friend. And so we went out. We were actually sitting in front of Braden, and we were swapping stories. And she said, well, I went to school here. And so I went to school here. What year did you go to school here? 83. I went to school here in 83. Come to
What?
find out, this Debbie Shapiro was actually Debbie Fleming. I didn't recognize her after 30 years, of course. So,
And Larry had a crush on me in junior high, and I never knew it.
you're not supposed to tell that.
Well, we were eating ice cream. It was for lunch.
Yes, it was very nice. And to be honest, we met up that one time, and I've never left her side since. So we got married just about 3 months later, and lived in the house that I raised my kids in. But we needed
Remodeled the farmhouse.
That's right. We remodeled
It was so fun.
and ended up moving to Alabama. We started vacationing down here, but ended up moving down here. I did give up the job with Giarusa, and now I am an Uber driver. So love it, absolutely love it. Just outside of Mobile, Alabama. We live in what's called Daphne, Alabama. Beautiful, right on the Gulf Shore. So, or the bay. We actually live on the bay, but it's at the Gulf.
We named our condo by the bay, as you can see.
All right, so that's kind of my story in a nutshell. And so Debbie will tell hers.
Okay, so I'm really grateful to y'all for my husband for setting this up so that I can participate in the 40th reunion. Woo! And I'm a total anthropology freak, so I want to know stories. What happened to you when you were walking the planet? I'm so interested and so happy to hear from everyone. Anyway, so after graduation, I went to college, and then I went to some more college, and then I went to some more college after that. As I twirled around the country, explored different areas. So, and I realized that matriculation didn't come all that easy between colleges. They didn't like to transfer credits very well. It's like, play nicely, come on here. Anyways, I moved to the West Coast, to Southern California, and I was like around the Redondo Beach area. I lived in Redondo Beach, Torrance Beach, Hermosa Beach, and that was right between like Malibu and Palos Verdes Peninsula. So I was the beach babe. I dabbled in beach parties and aerospace. Aerospace was really interesting. I studied Buddhism and how to attain my higher self. That was really different. After, being raised in the church at home. And then I moved inland to Arizona for a while, and I experienced the desert life. I thought it was really interesting how the desert flora and fauna could make paint from the dyes, from the floral dyes. I just thought that was really cool. And I also studied Catholicism. So I went to catechism and went through that. And I worked at the hospital in the laboratory, utilizing my executive secretarial skills that while you guys were all in over in Edgewood finishing out high school, I went to the VOED because I wanted to get into business like totally quick. So I did. I took administrative secretary or something like that. Anyways, the shorthand, the teachers at Edgewood, they were like, no, don't go, because I was a straight A student. They were like, you're totally college bound. And I'm all, but this is going to help me. So I did. I went there, and the shorthand that I learned totally helped me in college with my notes. I was the quickest note taker, didn't crack a book, just took some notes. And so anyway, so I worked at the hospital laboratory, and I also tutored math. I think I tutored at actually most of the colleges that I went to. I tutored. I totally love tutoring. So fun to watch the students' eyes go, whoa, what happened? So then I married a Jewish man, did that for like 12 years. So I studied Judaism up close and personal, where all of my holidays changed from like Christmas to Hanukkah, from Easter to Passover, and we did Shabbat and the prayers and things of that nature. So that was interesting. I picked up a degree in respiratory therapy during there. during that time because I wanted to help save lives, but it was way too stressful and intense in the IC, in the intensive care unit. So I specialized in sleep studies, and I I had a little lab in Boca Raton, Florida, and my lab partner, she was so sweet. She was heavy duty Catholicism, and I think she was ordained to give the sacraments and everything. So she wanted to pray the rosary every night after our patients went to sleep, and so we did. So I was back in Catholicism studying that, and that's when I had my near-death experience. My office chair at the laboratory did acrobats, flipped over on top of me, and it was the total Christopher Reeve situation there for a while. I had like a 3% chance of survival, and I survived. So hallelujah. There's a few things I can't do still, but I'm here and it's good.
Traveling is one of them that's hard for her to do.
Yeah, traveling. So during the 7 years that I was pretty much incapacitated, lying on my back, staring at the ceiling, I got really, really close to God. And then I met Larry. And that was interesting. Oh my goodness. I never thought that I would get married again or anything like that. And he was in the mission field. He was a fellow missionary helping me move. And the first time he prayed for me, he just kind of put his hand on my forearm, and I was like, whoa. It was like a spiritual joke. You know how the way I can describe it is the scriptures where John the Baptist was in his mom's womb. Who was it? Elizabeth. And then she came into contact with Mary, with Jesus in her womb. And John did this whole woo, flip, joyful dance in the womb or something like that. Anyways, my belly was just like woo, 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 woo. And the backs of my hands were swirling, woo, woo, woo. And I just looked at him and I was like, dude, who are you? he was all, dude, that's just rude.
I got used to the hippie chick that came back home from California after a while.
But after that, soon after that, I let him drive me to church because I can't drive anymore. I don't drive. And one afternoon after church, he drove me to his folks' farm, and he had a picnic blanket under the shade tree there. And we went ring shopping in Israel and online. And we bought our rings engraved with Hebrew letters. Mine's the Proverbs 31 woman of valor, and Larry's is the priestly blessing. So, oh my goodness, we were married, zip boom bam. And we've been having fun ever since.
Yeah. So we moved here to Alabama, and as I said, Debbie will be here, and she'll be monitoring the live video Zoom meeting during one of the events or some of the events. So we'll see how that all works out. But be looking for a Zoom link for anyone who can attend in person. They will be getting a Zoom link in their email box. And those of you that do attend, we'd love to have you you kind of share your story on. I'm going to carry my phone around and have you guys share your stories live on the Zoom meeting. So hopefully you guys enjoy this. We will see what happens and talk to you all later.
Shalom.